Hello, everybody, and welcome to 3 Point Perspective, the podcast about illustration, how to do it, how to make a living at it, and how to make an impact in the world with your art. I'm Anthony Wheeler.
I'm Lee White.
And I'm Will Terry, and all three of us are professional illustrators. We've all worked for all the major publishers in the business. Together, we publish somewhere around 75 children's books, and we've all taught illustration at university art schools.
That is right. Every week, we come at you guys with fantastic illustrator interviews or listener questions, just like you might have. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we argue, but each time you learn something brand spanking new.
Does it feel like we're the kids running the show right now?
It does. Like Dad's gone. And
maybe we should
we're
just
trying to make lasagna.
we should just let everybody know that like the podcast is Jake's baby, and and he really keeps everything on the rails. He keeps everything working. So when he's not here, it's like we feel like we have to live up to his expectations. But at the same time, we could break some of the rules.
Yeah, when the cat's away, the mice will play. I mean, ultimately, the elephant in the room is he couldn't be here today because he's in Antarctica teaching penguins how to ink with brush pens. So he thought that was a better idea than hanging out with us today. So,
well, did you see his invention?
No.
It's a flipper adapter that can hold a pen, because that's the problem that penguins have had up to this point is they cannot hold the pen.
Yeah, you're right. He's trying to get the trademark on that, which is incredibly hard to do. The penguin market is very difficult.
Well, there's a lot of competition there.
Right. But he does look good in that parka. Okay.
The best.
This is what he gave us to talk about. You ready? Opener.
I like how we don't even pretend that we know what we're doing. We're literally, here's what he told us to talk about.
Yeah. It says opener discussion, the artist entrepreneur. This discussion could actually take the whole time. I won't read all that. And then let's see, but it wouldn't be bad. Okay, maybe do a round table. Each take a turn telling what is an attribute of an artist entrepreneur. Couple it with how you shift into that mindset. Perhaps tell a few stories, yada, yada, yada. And there you go.
This
right?
is horrible.
we might need to literally cut that section out and then restart.
We're not cutting anything.
Disaster.
This is great.
Will just got cut. So we're doing an entrepreneur type thing. What do we? How do we go into from doing a little project, doing a little sketch, into that becoming some kind of a game, a book, a series of videos, whatever it's going to be? How do you switch from creator to entrepreneur?
Let's start. Why don't we start from the beginning? Because there was a time where I would not have even thought of myself as an artist entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And now I do. And that transition didn't happen overnight.
See, I always had the entrepreneur, and I had to just train the artist side of stuff. A little known fact, we're going to have to bleep this out because there's a cuss word in it. But my first semester of art school, I thought that the art materials were too expensive. And I found a way to get art materials wholesale and sell them out of my car. And it was called Lee's Cheap Ass Art Supplies. And I sold them out of the back of my car. And then the school store shut me down. I got a cease and desist.
Is this a real story?
That's true. It's true.
That's amazing. What else have you sold out from the back of your car?
No, we don't need to go into that.
Okay.
There's a whole Elvis statue.
It's funny you're talking about selling stuff out of the back of a car. I ate clams out of the back of a dirty, broken down car trunk about 3 months, 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah. Wait, this is 3 months ago?
Yeah, we went down to Baja, and these guys, they pulled in front of us. It was scary. We're driving on the beach in our truck, and they literally like flagged us down and turned their car, so we had to stop. And I'm like, so this is the end. This is how hopefully someone sees this and can tell my kids how I died. Anyway, these two guys jump out, and they're like, hey, we got stuff to for you to buy, like you can buy our stuff, kind of a thing. And they had all kinds of stuff. They had like souvenirs and mugs and blankets, and then they're like, we have clams. I'm like, oh, that interests me, And they popped the trunk, which was held on with wire, and they had fresh clams. And so they shucked them. We ate clams, Lily and I, off of a really old board that they used to shuck them on and everything. And we slurped up clams out of the back of a. There you go.
Did you have any like gastrointestinal distress?
No. But I grew up.
You're the luckiest man on the planet. I don't think that there's many people who eat clams out of the back of like a Subaru Outback and live to tell the tale.
Well, here's the thing. That place is known for the seafood down there.
Sure. It's near the sea.
It's really easy for anybody to get it because they go out in their boats, and I mean, like, it's everywhere. So you are seeing it offered. And I figured, I'm like, hey, Lily, you only live once, kind of thing.
All right.
So literally, you only live once, because then you eat the clams and then you're dead. Either the guy kills you or the clams kill you. It's one or the other, right?
I grew up eating from raw bars, and I know what they're supposed to look like. And so when you can kind of tell, when they open them up, I'm like, oh, those look fresh.
What's it like to have lived a lot of life and feel comfortable with the idea of meeting your maker? Like, you must feel great.
It was one of the best experiences we had down there. But anyway, I take us completely off topic. Lee, continue on with all of the things you used to sell before you.
Well, that was just a preface for how do you shift from creator to entrepreneur. And I mean, I think there's some, like, my son has inherited that. He's already started. He when he was at school, saw that everybody wanted the Prime drink. I don't know. I mean, it's more readily available now, but when it first came out, it was really hard to get. He found a way to get it, and he sold it at school and got in trouble for that. But I was proud of him. I was like, you saw a need and that wasn't being fulfilled, and you filled it. And so, he thought he was in trouble, but I was like, no, let's go get some ice cream, man. That's awesome that you're thinking that way. So, I mean, I'll give you an example of that in real time. I'm doing it right now. So I went to Japan, as I talked about last week. There's all these paintings I want to do. I mean, there is so many paintings I want to do that I can't get to them fast enough. I've already done probably 6 or 7 at this point. And I'm sharing them on Instagram if you guys want to go see some of that stuff. And I'm sharing some videos on the process of it. But I'm just really enjoying doing this series of paintings. And so then I thought, well, if I'm going to do a bunch of these paintings, what do I do with them? Okay, well, now maybe I'll make them into a book. Well, the second I make them into a book, then my trip is tax deductible. So all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. Like, maybe there's something to that. And so I start kind of coming up with this sort of business plan based on doing little books, even if it's print on demand, making these things available and then filming some of the process for the paintings, because I've got a pretty good response from them online. And so filming some of the process and then making that available for sale. So, like, once you just see that you're interested in something, then you start to look at, okay, where's the market for this thing? And it starts to become this like snowball rolling. It starts really slowly, like, hey, I like making these paintings. Okay, well, what do I do with the group of paintings? And that's why I always push people to think in terms of projects, not just individual illustrations, because individual illustrations have almost no value. But a grouping of images turns into a Christmas game like Will's, or a grouping of images becomes this Sketches of Japan book that I'm doing. Or whatever Anthony does. I don't even know what he does.
Thanks.
Thanks, but
bud.
I'm serious. Like, online drawing where he's coming up with the prompts. All of a sudden, what do you got, Anthony? Like 50 of these things that you've done live, and then it becomes a game. And I don't know if you have a book with all that stuff as well.
We're working on one for sure. Yep.
Yeah. So you can sort of see the step by step. Is it starts with a little bit of inspiration, but then you start looking for the market, and that's the step that if you haven't done it yet, you need that step. Is like, I enjoyed making this thing. Who else might enjoy this? And then what format are you selling it in?
Yeah. I want to ask Will real quick, because I know, Will, you came up the ranks in sort of like more of a traditional way, getting your education, starting in the illustration market. Back then things were very different. It was much more about working with the art directors and the editors and finding those opportunities and those gigs that then paid you. What was that like when you were doing those kind of projects that were very kind of like meat and potatoes, super traditional, what I think everyone envisions? And then I guess like how did things really start to transition into you thinking, well, I think it's time that I start doing this on my own or start doing little aspects of that on my own.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that in the beginning, you all you really care about is making money doing art. And you don't even care what kind of art it is. If I'm drawing anything, I'll draw anything if you'll pay me. Instead of, I mean, I was doing roofing and I was doing concrete work and I hated it.
Yeah.
So if I could sit at my desk and I'll draw anything. That was where I started, right? And so I ended up doing when I first started in illustration, I was doing a lot of magazine work that I later hated, but in the beginning it was like it was like this is amazing. But it was amazing because I got to be in a nice office at home and and just draw for a living. I'm like, wow, I'm getting paid to do this. That wears off. If you're really a true artist, you want to create things that feed your soul, right? So to me, the next phase was I want to draw things that I like to draw. So that kind of took me into trying to illustrate children's books. So I completely redid my portfolio in children's book work, and then lo and behold, I started getting children's book work. Actually, I was getting textbook work. So that was the kind of the next step, which is drawing for children in like reading books and math books and stuff like that. But the problem with that kind of stuff is it's heavily art directed. They're telling you to do stupid stuff. So I was drawing subject matter that I liked more, but every painting almost got ruined by just I felt like really dumb ideas, right? Or boring subject matter, like really boring stuff that's just not really fun. So the next stage was working for on actual children's books, and some of the books that I got asked to do in the beginning were great, and some of them were stuff I just didn't want to do, and and then and then moving along even further, working on some children's books that I thought could be perfect, and getting told by the authority you have to make these huge changes that really frustrate as you get to where I'm in my 50s at the time, 40s, 50s, late 40s, and I'm being art directed by someone in their 20s, late 20s, and I feel like they're making really bad decisions and I have no control. And that really kind of led me to wanting to have more control of being the person who designs, who comes up with the idea of the book, or in this case, what I'm working on now, games, um, comes up with the idea, and really like everything falls on me. If it's not good, then I'll know that it's not good because people won't like it. But at least I got to do what I wanted to do. And I actually think that that's like a kind of a natural progression for a lot of artists. Like I mean, Lee, you've been to CTNX, right? Like, and when you go there, you see like it's a sea of animators, and but they're displaying the stuff they did after hours, right? So they go to their job and they're working on whatever game or whatever show or cartoon or whatever. But when this is me now, I look at what all the amazing artwork they're doing, and I'm going, gee, they must not be fulfilled in that job like me in children's books, because they really want to do their own thing.
Well, there's only so much enjoyment that I think that you can get from, I don't want to say being a hired risk, because most artists, especially at that level, do bring themselves to the work as best they can.
Mm-hmm.
But man, there's something about doing your own thing. Like you said, even if it just breaks even or doesn't really totally hit, at least you own the whole thing. And when it does hit, I think the satisfaction is just so much higher. I mean, like for example, when we started SVS and started doing our own classes, when I was a full-time teacher at the Art Institute of Portland, it would take me 2 years to get a class pushed through. By the time it got pushed through, finally they had attached so many rules and requirements on it that it wasn't even the same class that I wanted it to be. And then I had to grade everybody, which I didn't really love doing that either. And then all of a sudden you switch to like, say, fast forward to the workshop, the watercolor workshop I did a couple of weeks ago. That was so absolutely enjoyable. I got to, it was basically 2 full days of me saying, this is the most important thing that I can impart to you right now. And I didn't have anybody saying, oh, don't do it, or you need to cover this, or they got to take this other prerequisite. It was just like, nope, let's get it done in the exact way that I think it should be done, for better or for worse. And so, and it's just great, especially when the feedback is, oh, that was fantastic, I learned a ton. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I'll change this, or I'll add a day. I need to add a day to my workshop. That's the one thing I learned. But man, just making your own stuff. I'm doing a client-based job right now, and they are asking for my style even, and it's still not as enjoyable as doing anything on my own.
Yeah, because you just don't own the whole thing. I mean, you own aspects of it and things like that, but you still have somebody kind of behind you.
They change it. They always add one thing. Like for me, my work is getting more simple as I go, more shape driven, more simple. And they wanted to go the opposite way, which is more complicated and more stuff, which is fine for their project. That's what they need for their project. I get it, but it's not what I'm interested in.
So. Yeah. But you mentioned SVS, Lee. So that was one of our entrepreneurial projects. You know, what's funny is like for me when we started doing classes, the idea wasn't like, oh, we're going to do these classes and make a ton of money.
Right.
What it was for me was I got tired of going to the university, like getting dressed up, because who wants to get all dressed up, right? When you're just kind of in your home knocking around clothes. So, and then you have to drive down there, then you have to find parking, then you have to like fight with anyway, like parking was a mess. And then you walk all the way across campus, you get to class early because you have to be early, you have to set up. I mean, it's just like so much time, right? You're talking about like, for me, it was like 45 minutes to an hour just to get there. Then you have your long class, and in that class, you're giving the same presentation you gave the year before, and you've got your lessons. But I started saying, gosh, like I just gave a really good lesson and it evaporated. Like it was great for the 20 people that were there. The person who didn't show up, they're like, hey, what did I miss? I'm like, you missed it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
I'm not gonna do the lecture again.
I can't do the whole lecture for you. The lecture part took an hour. And they're like, well, so what did you miss? You missed an hour of a lecture that I'm not going to give you right now. And I started thinking, this is really dumb. These lectures should be recorded, so that if a student misses it, they can just watch the lecture. And that was what gave me the idea to really start, doing classes and stuff online. But that's like, yeah.
No, I was going to ask you guys, so there's got to be some folks that are listening right now that are, I know that there's a whole bunch of folks at home who really want to have that entrepreneurial mindset and they want to do their own projects. But I think there's also a bunch of people out there right now who are just like, I kind of just want a job, or I kind of want the stability. So if you take a step back, like what kind of advice or what do you say back to those people who are in that mindset? Because I don't think that there's one that's better than the other. There's the ones that we kind of fall into.
Right.
But what do you tell those people that are sort of in a different place in their lives?
That's a really good question, Anthony. And I would
Thank
say,
you. I appreciate it.
Well, no, it is. I mean, it's like brings us back down to earth. And I would say, for one, you don't want to, I would never want to make someone feel bad for not wanting to be an entrepreneur and just really wanting to be an illustrator. Because I've met people who are totally happy in their job, either freelance or working in a studio somewhere, and they're like, this does it for me, and they absolutely love that work. So I don't want to ever say that this is a higher level to be an artist entrepreneur. It works for some people and it doesn't work for others. And you may, some people probably just we're going to go through, at least I've got a list of things here of attributes that I came up with that I think you need as an artist entrepreneur. And some people don't have those, but they have like things that I don't have, which is the ability to just really own the project that they're given at work and just be a work on a team and make it work. I think I kind of lost that desire. I really have the desire to be at the top of the creation process and the decision making.
It's because you're a control freak.
I'm a control freak. It's true.
I mean, sometimes there's those, like working in corporate environments, there's some of these people that are incredible. And I was one of them at a time, but incredibly task oriented, being able to check things off the list and seeing the sort of the minimal accomplishments feel really, really, really good, and having kind of their desk in order, which also means that they've got their lives in order. And then you also see those kind of those high level creative thinkers who cannot do any of those type A activities. They can think, they can dream, they can strategize, but they also can't always execute. And then the people that are looking up at those people are like, can you just send that email, please? Can you just do the thing that I need you to do? And so there's always that kind of push and pull. What are as we've all kind of transitioned into this phase of our lives, what are some of the things that are still scary to you guys as we are artistic entrepreneurs?
Well,
like, what are some of the things that still like make you freak out a little bit?
Let me give you my ice cream analogy real quick.
Oh boy.
It goes along with that.
By the way, wait, hold on. Lee just made this up right now.
Put the knife. God.
Yeah, put the knife down, Lee.
You're so.
I got this really cool knife that I'm playing with.
How do anybody like you? I don't understand. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
I'm jabbing with my knife. That's that sound. Oh, that's like a shiv sound. No, so the ice cream analogy is. Ice cream analogy is something I told my son, which is when you're a kid or even when you're an adult, if somebody says, hey, let's go get ice cream, there's really no, you got to be a kid because you'll get fat if you're an adult. If you're a kid and somebody says, let's go get ice cream, there's no downside. It's like the one thing in your life where there is only upside and there's no downside. And I was just trying to explain to him because he was upset about, how much homework he's in 8th grade now. And life is becoming different. You're going from being a kid to being a young adult and or teenager, it just changes. And I just thought about that moment that there's never the ice cream moment anymore where there's all upside and literally no downside. There's a balance that ends up happening. And so what you guys were just talking about is the balance. Like I miss being on a team like I was complaining about how hard it was to get a classmate at the Art Institute of Portland. That's the downside. The upside is I had the greatest group of teachers around me and we all became really good friends. And we still have a running text thread with all 5 of us that I talk to them every single day. And I miss that we were high functioning, not just friends, but high functioning teachers where I knew I would go sit in on their classes, even like 3D modeling classes. I didn't know what they're talking about, but I tried to see how what I was doing integrated to what they were doing. Yeah. And we just had this, basically it's just well-oiled machine. And that was the plus side of it. I loved going to work. I loved working with them and I loved working with all the students that would come through, but there's the bad side of it. Which is, it has its own thing. But as a freelance illustrator, the bad side is an uncertainty of income that might happen, an uncertainty of cost that's going to happen. I mean, there was probably a period after I left being a full-time instructor, probably 7 years, I didn't take a formal vacation because I didn't really understand how I can say, oh, I'm going to just spend $5,000 that has no way to be made up. Yeah. I would always kind of shoehorn a vacation into, well, I'm doing an art fair in Bend, Oregon. Maybe we'll stay for 2 more days and that's my vacation. You know what I mean? It's like you can't live a normal life. And so there's all the uncertainty, there's all the insecurity. And then for me, one of the biggest downsides is I love talking to you guys. It's being alone all day. I'm a social person. I like being around people and I like that team environment. That's why I want to share a studio with Anthony, by the way. We live 20 minutes from each other.
Yep. I was on the other day looking at spaces. We'll talk about it later.
Well, I mean, my co-working space is awesome. If you joined that one, it's $300.
It's too far away. It's too far
Dude,
away.
shut up. It's like 20 minutes and you can brainstorm while you're driving. Anyway, long story short is there's no ice cream anymore. There's always an upside and there's always a downside. You just have to figure out which one's going to work for you. As an entrepreneur, the new thing that comes in from the old model of an illustrator, which what Will was just talking about, where we used to just get hired and we do the job and then we send them the work and we get paid, is just where do we store all this stuff? We become this basically this store. And, Will and I were chatting about it yesterday. Like Will's ordering a bunch of these games. It becomes a practical matter. If he's got 10,000 games that basically he's storing in order to sell them, where do you put those things and how are they closed, or is it a storage unit? So they're just all this other side of stuff. But like Will said, there's nothing like being an entrepreneur. And my recommendation is always, students always want to, or people just getting into this want to go big. I'm going to do a $5, set of a novel, graphic novel. It's a huge thing. It's just too much. There's ways to dip your toes in the water, a greeting card, a pen, or some kind of little thing where you can test it out and you start learning.
There's a really good hybrid approach. And I think in podcasts and maybe just in the world that we're in right now, it's very easy to talk about absolutes, things that are very black, things that are very white. Like, I think that for me, for a while, I really ran this hybrid approach where I had a day job and I enjoyed it. It was good.
I like that model.
Yeah. And then I would do little things. I would do like little freelance assignments, or I would make a little product. And it was a thing that was enjoyable. It took my mental energy. It was fun to promote little stuff, little stuff. And then eventually that's what gave me the confidence to go more full time with my entrepreneurialism and leave behind some of the corporate stuff that I felt then later that was kind of holding me behind. And so I don't think that there's, we talk in absolutes. I don't think there's anything wrong to that hybrid approach. I also don't think that there's anything wrong for somebody who's like just a really good hobbyist who likes to maybe make one of those enamel pins every once in a while and make just enough to break even, give to some friends, maybe find a couple of customers.
Well, like I said, that should always be the phase one, no matter how big it's going to go at some point. I mean, even the Rifle Paper Company, which we've talked about, a bunch, they started out with just like a single wedding announcement card.
Yeah.
And now they're a multi-million-dollar business. So you got to start somewhere.
Now, Will, we were talking at the top of this thing. So you have a little bit of a different perspective based on the community that you live in, that you get to see folks that I think are a little bit older than you in sort of retirement situations or getting close to retirement situations. And I imagine you've met like lots of people who just lived a corporate lifestyle, got their 401k, and a bunch of people who had the entrepreneurial mindset and lifestyle, and they're living very differently. I don't know, talk about that a little bit. What's that like to be able to talk to those people and sort of like survey their lives through their eyes? What's that like?
I'm getting to see the end game for sure. Because we're actually the young people here in our community.
Which is crazy because you're 93 years old.
That's right.
You are really old.
I mean, I'm 58 and they're like, most of the people there's people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. But I mean, like I see people that it seems like there's two groups of people. There's the people that basically get up and live the same day over and over again. And it includes telling the same stories. Like, I mean, literally telling the same stories over and over again.
That's when you know you're close to the end.
And drinking. Having drinks and just basically sitting around and really not doing anything and dying kind of like really unhealthy, long, prolonged deaths and stuff like that. And then I see people that are really active and their minds are really sharp. And a lot of those people that I play pickleball with that are in that other group that are like, they're moving. They feel young. I mean, there are 80-year-olds, 85-year-olds they'll beat any of us at pickleball. And a lot of them were entrepreneurs. A lot of them did other things. They've kept their brains sharp. And I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of people that seem to like, all they do is talk about the glory days of like when they were living and now they're not, and then there's people that are living now, all the way up till their death. And I've known like 3 or 4 people who have died who were playing pickleball the week before they died. That's how I want to go out. I wouldn't mind going out on the pickleball court, but you know what I'm saying? But like
holding a Wicked Christmas and a pickleball ball,
yeah,
picture book.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, and I think that you only have one go around in this life. You might as well do something. And if you're at all, I'm obviously an advocate of artists, taking control and doing their own things. But I mean, like, if you want to leave a mark, that's one way to do it, is to make unique products that they're one of a kind that no one else can do but you. And you can leave them, give them as gifts to the world, because they really are. I mean, that's what we do as artists. We give gifts, right? Like we make gifts and we give them. And I know I've said this a bunch of times on this podcast before, but there are so many entrepreneurs out there that can't make their own product. And so like whenever I'm like right now I'm researching how to do wholesale for our games, and almost all the videos are out there are like speaking to people that I'm talking about like on YouTube. All the videos are like speaking to people that are looking for a product to resell, right? So it's like there's tons of videos on like finding old video games and reselling them, and people that made a lot of money doing that, how to find them, how to resell them. You guys that are listening, you have the ability to make the product. You don't have to find something to resell, and not only find something to resell, but compete with everybody who's finding the same exact thing and reselling it. You have the opportunity to make something that no one else can make. And all you have to do is get the skills that all those other people have, or the desire, And I would love to talk about that a little bit. Some of the things that I think we need. I think that that one of the things that people misunderstand about entrepreneurs is they think, well, they're just lucky or rich, or they just came from a background of money, and that can be true. That can be true, but the other thing can be true too. There are a lot of self-made um, you know wealthy people that had nothing. I mean, like, I'm a guy who lost his house and had his truck repossessed at the same time. I started from zero, less than zero. I was in major debt. And so frugality is one of the things that you need to be able to save up money that you can then use as a tool to invest and reinvest. And so like right now on the Kickstarter ended last night for Wicked Christmas. And this is actually Halloween, by the way, when we're recording this. But you can go on there and look, and we raised 71,000. Well, out of that, and I'm sharing this on my YouTube channel, but all my expenses and everything, I've got a spreadsheet that I'm showing like everything that we spent and everything that we got. And I mean, we raised, if you do really quick math, 71,000, and then you have like, what do you call it? Error loss or something?
Yeah. Will and I were talking right as we were getting onto the show today. There's inevitably, when somebody backs a Kickstarter campaign, there's always 10% of the backers where their credit cards either drop, error out, like, their expiration dates have changed and stuff.
And it looks like I have a little over 100 of those. Ooh. We might be able to get some more of those to back, but if I just do quick math, if our average pledge was $40, there's $4,000 gone off the 71. Yep. So take 71 minus $4,000, we got 67. All right. So then Kickstarter takes 10%. So 6,700 off the top of that. What is that? 67. We're down around 60. Okay. And then I have some other bills to pay. That takes me down to about 53. So I'm starting.
Not to interrupt, but your campaign is not collecting shipping until later. A lot of Kickstarter, like my Kickstarter campaign, always includes shipping, which is about 10 to 20% of the overall amount. But your shipping is getting collected later.
That's right. We'll charge shipping later.
Yep.
So I'm going to end up with like 53,000, I think, and then out of that 53,000, I have to pay for the products that we're going to ship out, right? And so just like some quick math, the ornaments that we're selling, I think we sold like $1,400 worth of that, and greeting cards and stickers and things like that. And so maybe I'm down at 50,000. And then we'll have to buy some packaging materials and different things like that. We got to buy a storage unit for the books. And so, maybe we subtract another 2,000 or 3,000 there. Maybe we're in the 46, 47 range. And then I got to buy the games, and the games. Now I've decided I think I'm going to buy 14,000 games because I'm really afraid to run out next year. And I'm an optimist, and that's the next thing on my list. I'm an eternal optimist. I would rather err on being optimistic than being pessimistic on how many we think we can sell.
But you also bet on yourself, and you bet on yourself based on track record, based on historicals, and based on things that you know in the market because you've researched that market.
Well, and we had 18,000 people that said they wanted the game enough to give us their email. So I figure if we have that, and we're going to be marketing wholesale to stores, we're going to be selling on Amazon, we're going to be launching another Kickstarter where we offer it as a reward tier. We're going to run Facebook ads to sell it. I actually think that we might regret only ordering 14,000, but you got to pick a number and go with it, right?
Yeah.
And I won't have
folks I was going to say real quick, for folks at home, the more that you order of a certain product is the less expensive per unit it goes, the economies of scale. But there is also a point of like, do you have an extra $30 or $40 or $50,000 to put into product right now versus then putting that money into ads to be able to sell?
Right. So I think that we will end up spending about $22,000, $23,000 on games, and then maybe a little bit. Actually, probably like 27, 28. So out of the 50, we're probably at like 22,000 rough math that's left over. And maybe there's another 1,000 or two. So I think there's probably like 20,000 extra money, like what would be profit. However, I spent $41,000 on getting just on everything, getting ready for the Kickstarter, the video, the marketing system we used, a bunch of software stuff, and Facebook ads. So I started negative 41,000. So if I get to keep 20,000, I'm still down 21,000. So that's kind of the rough math of where I'm at. And I'm fine with that. I mean, like that, but I would never have been fine with that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. No way. Like, wait, I'm done with my Kickstarter and I lost $20,000.
But it had 1,700 customers.
Right.
Yeah.
But the gold is going to be stored in a storage unit, which is the games that we get to sell, for years to come. And hopefully we get to reorder again. I just from the level of interest, like from like stores reaching out to us and saying, hey, is this going to be available for this Christmas season? We'd love to order some. I think that we won't have a problem becoming profitable later. But I mean, like I took money out of savings, that's hard to save money. It's hard to save, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And I have retirement money that I won't touch, that is just locked up, and it's like I'm not going to use that to start a business with. But I have money that I have set aside to do this with, and that's what I used. And so it's a tool. And when I get it back, it's going to go back in the storage unit for the money. And then if I have need of it again, I'll get it out and use it as a tool again. That mindset was really hard. I'll tell you, when we first started SVS, I don't know if it was for you, Lee, but like when we had to pay for things, and we made a lot of money. To me at the time, it was like we were making really good money, but we were like, we need to reinvest this. And that was hard. It was like a real lesson in learning how to reinvest in yourself.
We're doing it right now. We hired a whole company, and now we have to pay them, and it sucks. I wish we didn't have to. It's always hard to spend.
Well, could you clap your eyes on that money and you're like, that could be a new car, that could be paying for this, that, or the other. It could be put into savings.
The goal is to spend $1 and make $2. I mean, that's, ultimately, or make 3 or make 5,
Yeah.
but it's always a gamble.
And that's something that we don't teach kids growing up, right? I mean, like most people don't teach their kids that.
It's true. You're sort of gambling on yourself. I mean, I think that should be a part of every high school curriculum.
He froze a little bit.
Entrepreneur class.
Isn't he?
I'd rather do that than some other dumb civics class or something that you just learn about. I don't even know what they teach in those classes.
Yeah.
I skipped them, but yeah, we need that.
I was gonna say on this one, it feels like the key is, because I think there's got to be somebody at home right now like, oh my God, this sounds really scary. And I think the key is that Will's been doing this for a very long time, because again, he's 93 years old.
That's right.
And scaling very small projects into medium projects, into large, into these gigantic projects that he's in now.
Mm-hmm.
But that takes a long time for some people, not for everybody. And if you're able to live on this planet long enough, you get to scale into those and learn along the way.
Yeah.
Do you think if you would have had the success of a project like this on your very first Kickstarter project or your first crowdfunding project, do you think you would have freaked out a little bit, or do you think you would have been just like cool, let's go, I got it?
Oh,
I know what to do.
Yeah, I would have probably freaked out a little bit. I mean, especially if I had done it like on my other Kickstarters, I didn't spend any money on Facebook, so they were all profitable after the Kickstarter. What they don't teach in art school was highly profitable, right? I mean, from the Kickstarter. And then we sold books afterwards. But I would say that you learn this through failures too. Like, I mean, I have a whole list. This is a screenshot from, let me just share my screen here. If you're able to watch on YouTube, you'll be able to see this. If not, I'm showing like projects of mine that I consider failures, projects that turned out fair, and projects that turned out fabulous. So failure, fair, and fabulous. And each one of these, you're, as an entrepreneur, you're trying to make predictions, right? So you're saying, I have this idea, I think it's a good idea, I think people will really like it, and I think I'll be able to sell it. And one of them, my first Kickstarter that failed miserably, my only Kickstarter that failed to reach its funding goal, was I hate reading. And it was kind of my story. I hated reading growing up, and I thought I'd make this little ebook. Well, my prediction, I didn't do enough market research. I didn't realize that people don't spend money for apps. It was going to be an app, like a on the iPad. And so that was a failure. That one, I didn't learn enough off of that one, because I had to do Gary's Place and Gary's Worms, which also failed the same way. And I've talked about these on this show before. Another one that really failed was the Super Stick game that we put so much time and money into. And that one really hurt. But each one of them, I mean, I could talk for a couple hours on each one, on the lessons I learned. But those lessons, you bring them over into the next project and the next project, and then the wins that you have help you understand that it's possible, and give you the faith in yourself to go, okay, I think I can do this. One of the things that it's beautiful when you can get to a point where you can look at something that's really failing at in real time, and you can turn it and go, no, this might turn out to be a good thing, because I'm going to learn a valuable lesson. There's a really good quote by Jocko Willink, and he's on the Rogan podcast, and he's actually, he's not on Rogan. They talked about him on there. You can find this. Just type in Jocko Willink, and don't ask me to spell it. He was a military guy and a fighter, but he said that whenever something bad happens to you, just say good, because I'm going to learn something that I really need for the future. And then this other bad things happen, and just say good. Don't wallow in it. That's another attribute on my list, is that entrepreneurs go through the grief process really quick. the first day when we launched this Kickstarter on Wicked Christmas, that something freaked out on the there was a bug on Kickstarter and no one could buy. I mean, it was killing me because I'm getting all these messages from people going, "Hey, I'm trying to back your Kickstarter and it won't let me get to the paywall. It's all the pages are loading like molasses. Maybe I'll try later." And I'm thinking, well, those are the people I know, the 5% that are going to back my project that I know. What's happening to this total strangers that have never been on Kickstarter before, that just go, this is probably a scam, and they never come back, right? I mean, I know I lost a bunch of people like that. They've never done Kickstarter before. They already think there's a ton of comments leading up to the Kickstarter where people thought it was a scam. They're like, what kind of a thing is this anyway? I'm trying to deal with educating people on what Kickstarter is, and then to have that happen, and it was killing, it was just killing me. So that happened, and then we really underestimated how many people really only wanted to back it if they were going to get it for this Christmas, and rightly so. Like, how many people have money that they can spend on something for next Christmas, or even care about that, right? Well, we underestimated how many people were going to back out. Our Kickstarter should have been, based on the numbers of people that signed up for our dollar reserve, based on the numbers that people that gave us their email address, we should have been a $200,000 to $300,000 Kickstarter easy. If we hadn't had that challenge of we can't deliver before a certain time, like an adventure game, you can deliver it whenever, right? People are going to back it, and they're going to like wait and get it whenever. They don't need to have it to play it at a certain time of year. So that was a huge ask on our part. And it was a great lesson learned, because on the next Kickstarter, I'm going to come out of pocket for a Halloween game. And this is the plan right now. It could change, but for right now, I'm going to come out of pocket, print the game ahead of time, then run the Kickstarter, and probably in August, and then say, we're going to deliver this Halloween game before Christmas, and show us like holding tons of games, because we're going to be talking to people that are like, oh, you guys again, right? You're not going to have it for Halloween. No, we've got the games now, and I couldn't, like, if I do that, and if it's massively successful, that wouldn't have happened without what you could call a failure on this Kickstarter, because we're underwater 20 grand, right? So you could say that's a failure, or you could say, no, it's a lesson learned, a valuable lesson. And we're all we are is the amalgam of all the things we've learned, right? Like, so the more things that you can fail at, the more you can learn, the more powerful you are in the future. And I think an entrepreneur needs to develop that kind of mindset.
That is true. Yeah, you got to be willing to fail, got to succeed, and it's cool that you're kind of carrying it forward in that way. I can't wait to see your Halloween game, by the way.
It's shaping up to be fun.
Let's do it. All right, let's get to some questions, man. We spent a long time on that one. Let's answer some stuff.
Okay. In other words, Will, stop yakking.
No, it's important, because I mean, this is a real life. It's one thing to say, oh, you got to be ready for this, and you're just like hypothetically talking. This is a real project that you're talking about, where it went one way. You thought it was going to be one way. It kind of moved around, and some things happened that you didn't anticipate. That's a perfect analogy for how these things work. I don't think they ever go as you think they will. Sometimes they're better, sometimes they're worse, but typically it's like my ice cream dilemma. It's a pro and a con. It's never going to be, oh, I did a product and it just is this huge success and I'm happy. It's just not, that's not the way that it works. So I'm glad you go into that kind of detail, but now you have to shut up and we have to read some questions.
I think we have one good question. It's going to be a really good segue based on what we've been talking about. Lee, do you want to read it?
I don't have it pulled up. You can go ahead and read it.
I have a hard time pronouncing this word. I'm curious what you guys call it. Bob writes in to say, niche capiche. Do you guys pronounce niche or niche?
Niche.
I think niche is the more sophisticated. I put on cologne and I say niche.
but but
It's
it's
kind of
acceptable to say niche, I think.
I say niche all the time.
niche.
All
If you've
right, let
got
me.
that's like a very American, very harsh sounding. I
Yeah.
am drinking tea. I have my pinky out. I say niche.
Yeah, I'm from Minnesota, and we're just all like Germans and
That's
Norwegians,
my
and so
niche.
yeah, that's my niche. Hey, fellas, first off, let me start by saying I mean absolutely no disrespect. I'm starting this question really well. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, know what the answer is, but would like some clarification. You guys are always talking about the niche to get rich. But yet you guys are all over the map with your different projects. One year it's a kid's book, the next year it's a board game. Do you only mean to niche in the topic, or does the niche mean the endeavor as well?
That's a good
Or
question.
is it what you guys recommend for students starting out to focus on? Thanks, guys.
Good question.
It's a really good question because we are kind of all over the place, right? Like,
Yeah,
if an outsider looking in is kind of looking at all of our portfolios and like Lee looking at you doing tarot cards, and then and then picture books, and then prints, and then workshops. I mean, that would look like it's a pretty diverse portfolio, right?
It is, but I think what happens in the beginning is you need to establish who you are as an artist, and that time period needs to be focused. It needs to be channeled in a way that there's a certain kind of mark that I make, whether it's going to be an illustration for a tarot deck or whether it's these houses from Japan. I don't think they're too far apart because I already did those years of establishing sort of what to expect from me. And I think, I know exactly when you start drawing, I know exactly what to expect from you, and will too. And that's not, you can't be an early artist where you're doing all these different styles that really do have different mark making kind of ways you're making marks, and then also different palettes that you're using and different genres. And it almost looks like a different artist doing everything. For us, hopefully, there is a common thread, and so the niche really is what the work looks like, but where the work ends up can be all over the place.
Yeah. Do you think, Will, now that you've really gotten into games, and I think you understand that segment of the world really, really, really well, is it going to be hard for you to go back to do a picture book project or another freelance project? Because you're just so knee deep into games right now, like that's your niche.
No, I love telling stories. What it really comes down to is I want two things. I want to make fun artwork, and I want to make money.
Yeah.
And with it, and money second. I want to make really fun artwork first, and I want to make the world a better place with the stuff that I make, And so the idea of like having families and friends coming together and playing a game that I made is just an amazing thing, right? To think about people having fun because of something that I did and something they did. They have to bring that that to the table as well. But no, I think that I could easily go back to making some children's books. I'm going to need the right idea, the right niche. And like, so for this question, it's like, I think it's more like, think of it like this. I could have made a children's book that was a going to sleep book, right? Instead of Pickleball Paul. So that would be an example of not going niche to get riche, right? Like, right. So it would be shooting for the mass market, right? And because there's a million
but do you think, using that same project analogy, do you think you went too niche and that's why you didn't get reach?
So it's you know what, like, yes and no, like that's why I put that project in the fair category, because it's profitable and every month I make money on it. So some people would say, like, I'm making like anywhere from $300 to $500 a month on those books. So some people would say, well, that's a huge win. Like, why would you even complain about that? I'm not complaining, but I'm not saying it's not a home run either. It's not like it's not like a ton of money coming in. And it's not enough to reprint. So once the books are gone, that project ends, right? And what really happened there was, it's a boring story, but basically the biggest tournaments, the company that owns the rights to all the vending basically said they didn't want to carry the book. That one thing ended up, I think that this thing would have done amazingly well if they would have let it in to all the big pro tournaments, because that's where most of the people are that have time to shop and look around and stuff, and they just decided they didn't want it. They would rather sell gear, shoes, apparel, paddles, and stuff like that. So
there's something to be said though about making the thing that you want to make, right?
Yeah, I wanted to make it. But going back to the analogy, or the example is for the I can't remember his name that asked this question, but basically, like, if I shot for a going to sleep book, that would not be going niche. Going Pickleball Paul was niche, and maybe it was too niche, like Lee said. To me, Wicked Christmas is really wide, but it's also niche because of the seasonal aspect of it. So, like, everyone, just about everyone celebrates Christmas. I realize that not everyone celebrates Christmas, but I would say most of the people in the US celebrate Christmas. That's my audience. So I'm going wide in that sense, but at the same time, it is specific to that time of year and to Christmas. So it's kind of a niche in that way. And I would say the people that are doing adventure games, that it's another dice rolling game with orcs and goblins, and I mean, like, there's always a new one of those on Kickstarter. There's always like 50 new ones of those. To me, that's not going very niche. It's and the way to take that more niche would be to come up with an idea that makes it so unique that you're speaking to a specific group of people. Maybe it's, I don't even want to try to come up with an idea, but going niche is really identifying a group of people, and going after those. One of my friends that's a graphic designer, works for a guy who just, all they do is make stuff for the equestrian people. Like, that's all they do is make products that they sell in the equestrian world. That's going niche. And you can, I don't think there's a problem going back and forth.
I agree. I mean, you can't, the problem is if you go too much into the market, you can either saturate it, and then there's nobody left to really sell to if you've already sold them the one thing. And so,
right, if you go too far.
I mean, hopefully you can go, depending on what your niche to get reach is,
right,
the market can be massive. I mean, that's kind of why I went into the tarot deck, because it is a group of people that have a belief in one thing, but the market is absolutely huge. I mean, it's massive. And so
and it's still your work too. Like, everyone knows your work.
Right. So it goes along with my brand, but then the audience is huge.
Right.
And then, talking about these paintings of Japan, these watercolor, the groups I'm in Facebook, it's over 1 million people who just like painting and watercolor. That's the niche.
Yeah.
And that's just a huge group of people that they're not trying to be illustrators. They're not trying to be pros. They just enjoy making artwork.
Right.
And I like catering to that group, actually. But
I
the market's huge.
I think where this question is coming from partially is because we're bouncing, like he's seeing me bouncing when I was doing Pickleball Paul, now I'm doing games. I would say in an ideal world, you would find that thing that you really love to do and you stay in that niche if there's enough market there. And the reason for that is because the audience that you're building, you can keep selling to them. It's much cheaper to sell to the same audience, sell multiple things than to prospect and find a whole new audience. So yeah, in an ideal world, I will do 5 or 10 games and sell to the same group if I have that in me, and if I can come up with unique enough games that people love. That would be my dream there. And then maybe when I get tired of that, I go back and do children's books again. I don't know. And yeah.
I think in talking to both of you too, I think the commonality, especially as we get more seasoned in our career, is that there's a defining sort of like aspect to your art, your illustration. Like you have these themes that you follow really well. Like I was saying, like, everyone knows Will's work, everyone knows Lee's work, and then all the products that you're making are very evident of that work that you're making. You're not deviating in all of these completely different directions. Like the Wicked Christmas game has all of the hallmarks of Will's latest style that you've been working in for what, 7, 8 years, 10 years, maybe at this point. I'm in a really interesting phase right now. So I am experiencing a lot of creative ADD. So I love characters. I love character design. I love spooky stuff, but I like really cute stuff. I love a lot of storytelling. And I don't have as much sort of seasoning as you guys in terms of like, how long I've been doing this. And so now that I've been able to sort of make more money, assemble more people around me, we're trying a whole bunch of different things to see what really works. And like this week was really evident of that. I was talking to the team behind me. Like I love skulls and dark imagery. And I really want a line of products that sort of like follow that, but it doesn't necessarily, coalesce with my Instagram and the stuff that people know me for. I love I made this little enamel taco pin, and we came up with this whole idea to make this gang of food pins and t-shirts and slogans and posters. And it's so different than the creepy skull stuff that I do. And so those are two very different elements that do not have the through line. You would not be able to tell that I did one versus the other. And then we've got our games, and we have my art book stuff. And it's tricky because now, like what you're saying is I want to break into a couple of different markets, and I'm going to have to do that customer generation stuff in two kind of different areas, because the people who like enamel pins of tacos are very different than the people who are going to put like a creepy skull t-shirt on their body. And we're going to have to make some decisions here pretty soon, if that direction is the right direction. But at some point you got to try and you got to follow those interests. Like I've been having so much fun doing the character stuff, but I recently started doing these really interesting monochromatic black and white and gray paintings of landscapes and stuff like that. And like, that's now become like a real passion and interest. And so I kind of have to follow that to see where it goes. But you would not look at that stuff and see my other work in it. So there's I don't know, it becomes tricky. And I don't, saying all that, I don't think that there's a good answer, other than I think what these guys have really done is become very good at a bunch of different things, but their style is their style, and everybody recognizes it. And then it becomes very easy to market things because of that. I don't know if you guys disagree or not.
I disagree 100%.
You are ridiculous.
That's a really good sort of way to end it up. But I want to ask you guys a question, because I've noticed a theme that lately for the podcast. And I think it's because we're so entrepreneurial that we end up talking about business. When Daniel can cut this out if this doesn't go with the podcast. But what do you guys think about just art in general, aside from making money? I guess I don't even know how to really say it. I'm sick of talking about money so much, and want to talk about the reason that we make art, where like inspiration and the joy of sort of making art sometimes goes away when everything's so marketable and like, oh, who's my customer? Now I've got to put a price tag on it. And what about a mailing label? So let me ask you guys this. What's inspiring to you right now artistically that has nothing to do with commerce?
Yeah. So for me, like a month and a half ago, I had this fantasy concept illustrator on my live stream, and I really just wanted to learn from him about how he does what he does, because everything's just so gorgeous and looks perfect for video games. And watching him operate and having him teach me some of his best tips and tricks, I've been having so much fun just making these black and white paintings, landscapes and creepy stuff. And they might be marketable, but I am just really enjoying that. And I get lost in the sauce. Like I just get lost into the idea of making these things, and I reemerge like 5 hours later, and I'm exhausted and I'm sweating, because it's like weird. I don't make that kind of stuff.
Can you do a screen share? Do you have this stuff kind of handy?
Let me see if I can find it. Will, you go? And then, but that's kind of like, I've been able to find a lot of the joy and the passion trying something completely new. And I don't worry about selling that stuff. It doesn't really feel like a big deal.
Does that feel different than the stuff you're working on commercially? And why?
Totally. I think like I I know what my style is. Like I know if I'm going to draw like a monster or a witch or a Harry Potter character or a caricature of you guys. Like I know what that's going to look like. And I've got, 8 years worth of work that has sort of led me to that. And I think like what you were saying earlier is like you would kind of recognize that stuff. I still play an enormous amount with the kind of work that I make because it's like really cartoony. It's super fun. I go back to my childhood on almost every single piece. And so I still get the joy out of what I do. Like I don't look at it as a lot of work, even though I'm under a mountain of work right now. But it has been really exhilarating to try something completely different without that safety net of like all those extra little marks that I make or using my brush pen
Right.
to
Yeah.
get all
You've
those
got,
thick
you've
and
got the
thins.
things, the techniques that you know work and that
Yeah,
you can lean on, but you're having
yeah.
to kind of get away from some of that stuff. I agree.
Mhm.
That's really fun. That's sort of what I'm experiencing diving into watercolor. And I realized how much joy I just get out of painting in that medium that
Yeah.
I want to be better at it. And so I'm looking at a lot of people. I'm basically in a phase where I'm practicing. It's not, there's one idea of producing work that comes with being a pro illustrator. I'm producing something and it's going to be a print. It's going to be all
Yeah.
like I was talking about. But this is more an idea of practice and like this might be a total flop and wow, look at this. There's some Russian watercolors that are just so amazing and they're doing stuff that I don't know how to do. And so but I'm self-assigning myself explore these techniques and see if you can sort of reverse engineer them. And like you said, there's no safety net, but man, there's something fun about trying different kinds of artwork that you're not totally familiar with, or like you said, like there's no safety net. You don't know if the result's going to be good or not, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be because at the end of the day, worst case scenario is it's a piece of paper that just gets thrown in the trash.
Yeah.
So I do want to emphasize that idea of play, that not everything has to be a commercial project or something like that. The idea of just play for art's sake and then later look at it and see if it wants to be something more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Will? Do you ever get a chance right now with everything going on just to make a thing for your own personal enjoyment that nobody ever sees?
I could say that I don't get a chance, but really it's I don't take that time. I've chosen to spend my time doing other things. I
Yeah.
want I want to have time to play with paint again and just paint still lifes or landscapes because I love like playing with shapes and colors and
Yeah.
trying to interpret and stuff and having fun. And I see what Lee's doing. Lee makes time to do everything he wants to do, and I guess I do too. But like I'd rather play pickleball twice a day.
Yeah, right?
Well, I mean,
But
the way that I solved that problem was I just keep getting up earlier and at some point I will never go to sleep. That's my plan. Somebody was asking me about that the other day because I have in order to do these Japanese project architecture project, I I can't add more time to the day. I still have my tarot deck I'm doing. I still have this commercial illustration job, and the only way that I could figure it out was I'm going to get up early, like 4:35 around or 4:30 or 5 is when I'm getting up now, and then I do 2 hours of painting. And it's just such a wonderful, inspirational way for me to start the day. I didn't realize how much I was going to like it. I actually look forward to it when I'm going to sleep before the night before that I get to wake up and paint. And then I've already done that side of my life when I start my workday, which is around 9 a.m. To do the commercial stuff. And I've already sort of itched that. I've already scratched that itch, as it were.
Mhm.
And then I can go into my commercial work and feel satisfied, I guess. But
Yeah.
the only way to do it was to say, I'm going to do 2 hours a day and it's going to be every day, including the weekend. And man, I find that daily practice, all of a sudden the brush marks start to get smoother. Your color mixing becomes more vibrant. Um, just coming to the table every day has been awesome. Dude, that looks amazing. So Anthony's showing, for those of
that's
you
really
guys who
nice.
aren't on YouTube,
Oh, I
got this
appreciate it.
black and white thing, man. That is fresh. That
Yeah. So these are the
honest.
things that I've been making. But Lee, I'll be honest with you, and I'm not trying to kiss your butt because I don't care. But I've been listening to you talk a lot about getting up earlier and like being more intentional with those morning hours, and so that's what I've been doing, and it feels good. And
Yeah,
These are
yeah,
these are amazing.
those are fun.
This is Anthony
thanks.
Wheeler 2.0.
It's just different. I've always needed the lines to be able to put color down. I'm an old school newspaper comic strip dude. Like that's the kind of stuff that I like. So painting without that safety net of the ink, which is something I feel so comfortable in, has been super duper duper foreign to me. And again, it's just been fun getting lost in all of it. And I don't know what it will turn out to be. I don't even know if it needs to turn out to be anything, but it's just been fun.
I'm loving this style. I got to be honest with you, man. This is really really cool. Are you posting this stuff at all, or are you just keeping?
I've not posted any of it. I've not done any of it.
I'm really curious where you're going to go with this, because this has some potential. Not that you should like explore it as far as you need to understand it, and maybe I don't know, man. There is definitely something here that you're playing with. I love these.
Really nice.
The two that I'm having the most fun with right now is so up on the screen for anybody who's not seeing this is I've got this ghost and this little blackbird. I feel like there's potentially there's a couple of interesting characters for a picture book pitch, and then I love skeletons and creepies and stuff like that, and I love some more graphic-y design stuff. And so I'll keep playing around. We'll come back to this in a handful of months and see if it's gone anywhere. But it's just been fun.
Cool beans. Well, with that, we need to wrap because we've got Self-Publishing Pro coming up, and anybody listening to this probably doesn't care about that, but our students over there are going to care if we're late.
They will definitely care.
Would you like me to read the outro and get us out of here?
Will you be, Jake?
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. 3-Point Perspective is made possible by SVSLearn.com. Where becoming a great illustrator starts. Your hosts have been I, Anthony Wheeler, Will Terry, and Lee White. The podcast has been produced by Daniel Tu. Special thanks to team manager Preston Smith, keeper of the curriculum Austin Shirtliff, Shownotes Wrangler, Lily Howell, Chief Operations Officer Lisa Fott, illustrator is Annalise Black. Where can everybody find your work, guys?
Instagram.
Instagram at Will Terry Art.
Lee White.
Good job, guys.
Or willterry.com.
Yeah. I'm Anthony Wheeler Art, or the Chaotic Draw Along. That's it, guys. Now go draw something.